Good evening. I'm your friendly maid in the dark, here to read scary stories inspired by real posts on the internet. They say safety is in numbers, yet living in heavily populated areas can come with its own threats. Tonight's stories explore fear within urban spaces. Please enjoy. I'm still shaking as I sit here. My hands won't stop trembling, and no matter how tightly I wrap them around this mug of tea, the warmth doesn't reach my fingers. My mum keeps yelling at me from the other room, telling me to lie down, to try and sleep it off. But how could I possibly sleep? How do you close your eyes after something like this? Even in the safety of my home, I feel exposed. Like there's something just outside the corner of my vision, waiting for me to look away. I've had 4 cups of tea already, but I still can't get the taste out of my mouth. I keep replaying the night over and over, like my brain is scratching at the same wound, making it worse each time. So, let me start from the beginning. It was last night. I was at a friend's place, the usual kind of gathering. Games, drinks, laughter that gets a little too loud. And yeah, I drank. A lot. But I'm careful with alcohol. I know when I've hit my limit, when the taste turns sour and my body tells me that's enough. I never push past that line. By about 3:30 in the morning, I was done. My friends booed me, tossed the usual drunk insults my way. Most of them planned to crash on the couch anyway, but me? I like my own bed. I always prefer the long walk home. 20, 30 minutes, enough to clear my head, or at least make the world spin a little slower. But here's the important part. I was drunk. Not falling over drunk, but buzzing. My senses were dulled, my mind single-tracked in one thing, bed. Not water, not brushing my teeth, not locking the door properly, just collapsing, face first and letting the darkness swallow me. And I need you to remember that. Remember that I wasn't thinking clearly. Remember that my brain wasn't rationalizing, because if I had been sober, if I'd noticed the things I should have noticed, well, I might not be here to tell you this. My building isn't much. A small lobby, a corner to the left, a couple elevators, and a stairwell. Nothing special, nothing creepy. Normally, that is. But as I turned the corner last night, I slammed into someone. And if I'd been sober, that alone would have been enough to make me jump out of my skin. The hallway lighting has been terrible lately. Renovations mean the bulbs are dim, patchy, just barely glowing. The silence in that building at night is suffocating, and to suddenly turn a corner and come face to face with a figure, long-haired, shadowed, silent, that's horror movie setup 101. But drunk me just laughed, because what I felt brushing against the back of my hand wasn't skin. It was hairy. Wet. My brain, sluggish and stupid, thought, oh, a dog. So I patted it twice like a happy idiot and said, nice doggy. And then, I swear, someone laughed. Maybe me, maybe them. It blurred together. Now listen, I'm an introvert. Eye contact with strangers, not my thing. Especially not when I'm stumbling, drunk, red-faced, and glassy-eyed. So I didn't look at them, didn't study their features. All I remember is hair, long enough to fall across their chest, curtain their face, and maybe a dark green jacket, Couldn't even tell you if it was a man or a woman. I apologized, brushed past, and moved toward the elevator, eager to escape the interaction. My brain had reduced the whole encounter to something simple, harmless, late-night dog walker. People walk dogs at weird hours all the time, right? It wasn't worth thinking about. But sober me, sitting here now, keeps screaming at that memory, because in that dim, unfinished hallway, that figure didn't move like someone walking a dog. They didn't speak. They just appeared. And that thing I patted, it was not a dog. The elevator doors were closing when a pale hand slid between them, halting the machine with a mechanical groan. My pulse should have spiked. I should have felt fear, but instead I just blinked and waited. Through the sliver of the doorway, I think they asked me, "Floor?" My head was spinning as I stood still. Their voice was muffled, strange. But I answered anyway. 8th? They withdrew their hand, didn't say anything else, didn't step inside, just let the doors close again. And drunk me, I shrugged, pushed the button, leaned against the wall, and closed my eyes as the world spun around me. By the time the elevator chimed, my thoughts were already wrapped in the dreams of my bed. I stumbled inside, collapsed, and the world went black. If only it had stayed that way. I don't even think I got 4 hours sleep before my mum shook me awake, frantic. For a moment, I thought there was a fire again, like when I was a kid and we all had to evacuate. But no, this time it was worse. The police were in our building, banging on doors, asking questions. One of them looked straight at me and said, "You've got blood on you." I stared at my right hand, the same hand that had brushed against whatever it was in the lobby. My mum gasped. I tried to rationalize it. Maybe I'd cut myself, maybe I'd scraped against something on the walk home, but the truth pressed down heavy in the room. The cops swabbed the blood, asked me questions, tried to keep me calm. They didn't tell me everything right away, only that I needed to give a full statement later. But eventually, the truth came out. A couple who lived 3 floors below us had been murdered during the night. Their apartment turned into a slaughterhouse. The old man's body, dismembered, parts spread throughout the home like a puzzle from hell. And the wife? They'd accounted for almost everything. Almost. The one thing missing, the one thing they hadn't found yet, was her head. The same head that I had brushed against, that I had patted twice, like a happy drunk fool, that I had mistaken for a dog. Her freshly severed head. Even saying it aloud makes my skin crawl. But it wasn't just them. Another body was found across the street. Neighbors whispered that the limbs had been stuffed beneath cars in the basement garage. Though I don't know how much of it is rumor. All I know is that the police caught someone, a suspect, dragged them out in handcuffs sometime before dawn. The crowd outside swarmed with reporters, neighbors desperate for answers. Someone who saw the arrest described the suspect to me, said the man was completely bald. And that's when the bottom dropped out of my stomach. Because the figure I remember, the one I bumped into, the one whose dog I had patted, they had long hair, long enough to curtain their face. So who, or what, did I see? Now I sit here, hands trembling, ears ringing with every noise from outside. The police say it's over. They say the suspect is in custody, but my memory keeps betraying me, whispering, what if they got the wrong guy? What if the bald man was just one of them? What if the long-haired figure is still out there and knows exactly what floor I live on? The radio on my dashboard crackled, loud enough to startle me from the quiet haze of the evening. A voice bled through the static, urgent and distorted. Immediate assistance needed at the park in Grand Avenue. Unidentified woman attacked and in critical condition. Grand Avenue, just 2 blocks from where I sat. My pulse quickened as I turned the ignition, the engine humming to life beneath me. With my thumb pressing the side button of the radio, I answered, "Copy that. On my way. Any information on the nature of the attack?" A pause. Then the reply, flat and hollow. "That's a negative." I backed out, headlights cutting through the dark. Sirens whined in the distance, other responders converging on the same point. Whatever had happened at that park, it wasn't small. You could feel it in the air, an electricity of dread that seemed to vibrate through the city streets. The drive took only minutes, but each red light stretched unbearably long. By the time I pulled up, the place was swarming. Ambulances, cruisers, scattered uniforms silhouetted in flashing red and blue. Yellow tape cordoned off the scene like a glowing wound in the night. I flashed my badge and ducked under, my shoes crunching against gravel as I approached the huddle of responders. They stood like mourners around an open grave, blocking my view until one officer shifted aside. Recognition flickered in his eyes, maybe from the academy, and wordlessly he stepped back, granting me passage. I wish he hadn't. The first thing I saw was red, not the bright, vibrant red of fresh blood, but the darker, clotted shade of it, painted across the grass, smeared across a body that barely looked human. A woman lay on the ground. At least, they told me it was a woman. But the truth? It was impossible to tell. Her body was covered, not in fabric, not in dirt, not in ash. No, her skin was pierced thousands of times over by tiny wooden spikes, toothpicks, an impossible number of them, every inch of her flesh bristling like a hedgehog, each stick buried deep into her body until only a forest of sharpened tips remained. Blood seeped from each puncture, trickling rivers that joined into a pool beneath her. And worst of all, she was still alive. Her chest rose and fell in painful jerks, each breath a stuttered effort, a gasp that pushed the toothpicks deeper into her own flesh. The sound of it, wet, ragged, desperate, was enough to turn my stomach. A paramedic knelt beside her. "We've given her morphine, but we can't move her," he muttered to me, his voice sharp with frustration. "It drives the sticks deeper. We can't pull them out either." "Why not?" I asked, though I already dreaded the answer. He looked up, and for the first time I saw it in his face. Fear. Pure, unfiltered fear. "They're barbed," he said quietly. "Every single one. You pull, and the tip only digs further. We tried a catheter, but..." His voice broke as he gestured helplessly at her. "There are toothpicks up her damn nose." I couldn't look away. Her chest heaved again, and with each rise and fall, more blood seeped. More toothpicks pressed downward into muscle and bone. The paramedics hovered uselessly, trapped in the cruelest paradox. Any attempt to save her only hastened her suffering. I've seen things. Death, car wrecks, shootings, overdoses. Things that strip away your innocence piece by piece until you don't flinch anymore. But this was different. The human body wasn't meant to look like this. It wasn't built to be turned into a grotesque pincushion. My instincts screamed at me to run, to put distance between myself and this violation. But I stayed, because that's what the job demanded. I cleared my throat, forcing my voice steady. How was she found? The paramedic sighed, weary and defeated. Exactly like this, a passerby called it in. We've done everything we can, but... His words trailed into silence. His eyes had already accepted what his hands couldn't fix. Anything else? I pressed. This time, he hesitated, staring past me into nothing, as though searching for courage in the void. Finally, he nodded and left. When he returned, he carried two things, a folded piece of paper and a silver wristwatch. The watch drew my eye first. Simple chain links, 3 small faces, common enough. I stretched gloves too small over my cold hands. Curiosity had gripped me. But when he placed it in my palm, a strange familiarity took hold. The cold weight of it tugged at my memory, dragging something old and painful from the depths. I turned it over. 2 letters glared back at me, etched into the steel. A.E. My breath caught. Alice Edwards. My sister. 6 years ago, I had those letters engraved to myself. A gift. Something simple. Something personal. And then, 3 years ago, she was gone. Vanished during a nighttime jog, leaving behind a husband, a little girl, and a family with no answers. The search had ended. No leads, no witnesses. Just absence. And now here I was, staring at her watch clutched in my hand. Dread clawed up my throat as I turned back toward the body. I forced myself to push past the blood, past the forest of wooden spikes, past the mutilated horror of her form. I looked at her eyes. They were the only part left untouched. Bloodshot, strained, but still unmistakably hers. And in that instant, I knew. The woman on the ground was Alice, my sister, alive just long enough for me to see her die without knowing the whole truth. Grief hit me like a tidal wave, raw and choking. Vomit rose in my throat, my vision blurred, my chest ached, and for the first time in years, I felt powerless, utterly, hopelessly powerless. Through the waves, I heard the paramedic mumble. Another 40 mils of morphine might ease her suffering. But his face was full of dread. I stumbled away from the scene, nodding absently at the officer guarding the tape. My legs carried me without thought, my body desperate to flee before it collapsed entirely. But the pain didn't let go, and neither did the folded paper in my hand. It was the other object found beside her. With shaking fingers, I opened it. A scrawled short message, mocking, impossible to misinterpret. What do you think of my little hedgehog? And beneath it, a promise. If you liked this, don't worry. My zoo has only just begun. Attention shoppers, came a woman's voice over the intercom. Calm, official, but with something brittle hiding in the tone. Please move to the back of the store immediately. I froze. The back of the store? I whispered to Daniel, clutching the handle of our cart. Don't they mean the front? To pay for our stuff? It was 8:50 p.m., 10 minutes until closing. We dragged our 2 kids out here in some desperate parental strategy to burn off energy before bed. Instead, it had been tantrums, tears, Legos, chicken nuggets, the usual battlefield. And now there was this. The announcement repeated, louder this time, echoing down the aisles. Please move to the back of the store immediately. This is not a drill. I wasn't the only one confused. All around me, heads tilted upward, brows knitted. An old woman frowned up at the ceiling speakers. A young couple with a cart of garden supplies whispered furiously to each other. And then a man, a stranger with the look of someone who always knew the news before you did, spoke up. Didn't you hear? Tornado watch. 1 touchdown in Sorrowville. A tornado? My stomach clenched. I remembered seeing dark clouds rolling in from the east earlier, but I hadn't thought much of it. It didn't look bad. Not take cover bad. The intercom crackled again, sharper this time, like the voice was coming directly behind us. Do not stay in the open. I repeat, do not stay out in the open. And that's when the store erupted. Carts abandoned, feet pounding, voices raised. The entire Walmart shifted into chaos in the space of seconds. I grabbed Tucker, still just a baby, and clutched him against me. Daniel scooped up Jackson, and we bolted down the toy aisle, zigzagging, disorientated, turning corners until the shelves towered around us like narrow walls. We stumbled into the electronics section, the walls lined with televisions flickering in the dim light. For a split second, I pictured them toppling in a storm. 100 screens, glass exploding, raining down on our heads. My heart hammered. The voice droned again. Stay away from windows and doors. Do not attempt to exit the store. Is this safe? I whispered. Daniel shook his head, scanning the aisles with frantic eyes. Big open areas aren't good. I'll check the back. See if there's a break room. You stay here. He sprinted off, leaving me to sink down onto the floor between the shelves of video games. Tucker's bottle bobbed in his mouth as he sucked quietly. Jackson beside me giggled. Actually giggled. Is a tornado gonna hit the store? Everything's gonna fly around? Real fast? He asked, grinning like it was a show or YouTube video. I don't know, buddy. Hopefully not. I tried to be positive, but my voice cracked. I had never lived through a tornado watch in my life. Back in New York, it had been blizzards, hurricanes, but never this. Daniel returned breathless. Everything's locked up. No way in, no way out. He crouched beside me, trying to sound calm. Fairview's big. Odds are slim it hits here. We'll be okay. I never should have brought us, I muttered. You didn't know, he said, wrapping an arm around me. They should have warned us. A siren, a phone alert, something. But before I could reply, the intercom voice came again. And this time, something was wrong. Do not stay out in the open. Do not make yourself visible. That includes security cameras. Please move to a spot that is not visible to any cameras. I froze. What does that have to do with tornadoes? I whispered. No one answered. But in that silence, I looked up and saw them. The black domes hanging from the ceiling, concealing Walmart's ever-watchful eyes. My stomach turned. I guess we should listen? I urged nervously, though my voice betrayed me. We grabbed Jackson's hand and hurried down the aisles, weaving between carts left abandoned in panic. Soda bottles rattled in one, another held wilting flowers. Someone had even left behind a wreathing bag of goldfish, the plastic crinkling as I ran past. We ducked into the far east aisle, crouching low between grotesque smiling clowns. Their painted faces looked wrong under the harsh fluorescent lights. I ripped open a bag of peanut butter cups and shoved them into Jackson's hands to keep him quiet. But then the intercom snapped alive again, metallic and cold. Keep away from aisles with food. If you have food with you, leave it. Move to a new hiding place. If you have any open wounds, cover them with clothing. My blood chilled. That wasn't a tornado announcement. That wasn't weather at all. Daniel leaned close. We need to run now. But the tornado. Do you hear wind? Do you hear anything? I listened. The silence pressed down like a weight. No howling, no rattling roof, no storm. Before I could argue, the intercom gave its most chilling command yet. Assume a fetal position. Place your hands over your head. Close your eyes and do not open them for any reason. Daniel didn't wait. Let's go. We sprinted down the center aisle toward the front doors. My legs burned, but hope pushed me forward. And then I saw it. The tree outside just beyond the parking lot, perfectly still beneath a street lamp. Not even a whisper of wind touched its branches. There was no tornado. We reached the doors, breathless. Daniel slammed against them. I clawed at the seam, trying to pry them open, but they didn't move. They'd locked us in. And then I saw him, a Walmart employee, sitting on the floor at the end of a checkout lane, back to us, head bent forward, the familiar blue vest hanging loose around him. Hey, let us out! I shouted. No response. Did you hear me? Unlock the doors! Still nothing. But then a sound. A wet, smacking sound, like chewing. The intercom snapped again. Attention, do not talk to any Walmart employees. The smacking stopped. The man shifted. Slowly, almost creakily, he pushed himself upright, palms pressing against the conveyor belt. Blood smeared across the metal where he touched. He turned, and I couldn't breathe. His face was wrong. His mouth stretched into an impossibly wide smile, teeth glistening red. His skin looked drained, bluish, as if all the warmth had been pulled from him. And his eyes, oh God, his eyes were white, utterly white. Daniel yanked my arm. Run! Children in arms, we fled, the sound of footsteps following close behind. We ducked into clothing, racks of shirts swaying as we passed. Daniel pushed us into the dressing room, slamming a door shut and locking it. Inside the cramped space, we huddled on the bench. My arms wrapped around both kids. Daniel pulled out his phone. No service, he whispered. And then the sound of footsteps outside the door, black shoes pacing slowly. a shadow under the gap. The footsteps stopped. We held our breath. And then Tucker cried. The shadow turned toward us, knees bent. A hand smeared with blood slid under the door, sweeping across the tiles blindly, searching. And then his head lowered, pressing itself to the floor. That face again, that terrible grin, stretching wider as he peered in. His pale lips cracked. His milky eyes rolled toward us. I clamped my hand over my mouth, choking back a scream. And then the intercom boomed again. Attention shoppers, please make your way to the front of the store and make your final purchases. We will be closing in 10 minutes. And just like that, he was gone, dragged away by something unseen. His body scraped across the floor, out of sight. Minutes later, the world returned to normal. The store buzzed with life, carts rolling, cash registers beeped, shoppers lined up patiently. The glass doors now slid open without resistance. As we shuffled toward freedom, pale and trembling, I caught sight of the older man who'd mentioned the tornado earlier. What was that? I asked, my voice quivering. He smiled faintly. Tornado must have missed us. What a miracle, huh? And then he walked out into the calm, ordinary night, leaving me to wonder if I'd imagined it all, or if Walmart simply reset. That's all for tonight. Thank you for staying in the dark with me. For more scary stories, please consider subscribing and viewing more content on my channel. Until next time.